Hi, and welcome to a new episode of Legends of Bodybuilding. My name is Ben Wellen, and we are here with the legend himself, J.P.Fux.
Hi, guys. Very nice to be here.
And as you know, we both host this podcast, and today our special guest is a guy that is pretty much on par with Andrew Tate because he has been deleted, censored, and punished by YouTube and other social media outlets. A guy that is known for crazy amounts of anabolic steroid stacks, which he not only suggests to his friends, no, he also took him himself, so he knows for sure what the hell he's talking about in this area. Here he is, Dr. Tony Huge. Welcome, Tony. How are you?
Well, when I first started bodybuilding as a hobby when I was 12 years old, and I was looking at magazines of J.P.Fux in my teenage years, I never could have imagined I'd be on a podcast with him. This is wild. So thank you, Ben.
Yes, now he is. Yes, yes. Perfect, perfect. So, Tony, let me ask you this. Is this Dr. Tony Huge a made-up title which comes from your knowledge about bodybuilding, steroids, blah, 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 or has it anything to do with your lawyer background, or what is it?
Well, my career as a lawyer, and I had a doctorate of jurisprudence, so that gives some justification, kind of like a chiropractor or a dentist, I guess, using the doctor word. But my friends used to call me Dr. Huge because, basically doctor, they would call me, and then I later made the name Tony Huge because I've always been into biohacking ever since a really young age. It's just that I never touched the steroids until age 30. But before that, I was into every natural supplement you could imagine and experimenting with them.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's start. Hey, tell us, what is actually your bodybuilding background? Because I couldn't find anything. So did you ever compete, et cetera, et cetera? Tell us something about that.
Sure. I'm not a pro in any federation. I did compete roughly 13 times. And I started in physique. I was competed in one of the first physique competitions when physique first came out. So I was one of the guys that was intimidated to compete in bodybuilding. But when I saw physique, I was like, oh, I could compete in physique because
you were a really bikini man competitor, huh? Back then.
Yeah, bikini man. Yeah,
that's what it was called.
Back then, the physique competitors were quite small. You know, like
exactly.
Actually, they told me I was too big. I got third place my first competition, and they told me I was too big because they were looking for more of the small, to contrast bodybuilding. Now the physique competitors look like bodybuilders, so it's a totally different game. Absolutely. But I started with that, and then I started competing in bodybuilding. I won my class a couple times, and then I won the overall in Los Angeles. So I won one overall, and then so I went and competed in nationals in Miami, but I think I placed 11th in my height class, but there was like 43 competitors. So I'm okay. I could have kept pushing it. I probably could get a pro card if I pushed it hard in classic physique. I don't think I can get big enough for bodybuilding for my height.
But that's not too bad. I mean, winning in Los Angeles is not that easy like in other places because, as you know, LA, there are a lot of good bodybuilders around there. So I know that. And 11 at the Nationals is not bad either, especially when it was like, I don't know, 10 years ago, whenever it was, the competition was really stiff back then,
It was stiff competition, and Miami is a very competitive nationals. There are other ones where it's easier to pick up a pro card.
Right. Okay.
So Tony, you grew up in the scene of LA since there was the Mecca back in the days, and what years are we talking about here?
I grew up in Sacramento, California, so still California, but not Los Angeles. I just competed in Los Angeles and other places. But yeah, Sacramento. So I wasn't around bodybuilding. I got my bodybuilding passion from the magazines, like the magazines I saw you in. I would read every magazine that came out on the shelf every month for years and years during my teenage years.
Back in those days, did you have a coach, or you just learn like we did a little earlier from the magazines, or how did this all get started?
No, I just learned from the magazines, and nobody else was around me was bodybuilding, and nobody in my high school was really taking bodybuilding seriously. So I was a real lone horse. It was a really lonely sport. I did Taekwondo also, same time. But for the most part, like the bodybuilding life was a pretty lonely life because I just didn't have many bodybuilding friends. Fast forward to college, I started making more bodybuilding friends and training with bodybuilders on steroids while I wasn't on steroids, which, that helped push me harder because I had to try to keep up with them as a natty.
That's very unusual. Get your information out of the magazines. I mean, in these days, that's crazy. That's old school 70s.
Yeah,
right.
I had my first bodybuilding coach when I was 30. When I did my first steroid cycle and prepared for a bodybuilding my first bodybuilding competition at age 30. Yeah.
Okay.
So you talked about. I would never have associated you with any, interest in natural supplements. I like to hear that you were really into that kind of stuff. So what do you think natural supplement wise, what did you do and what do you think works up till today?
Oh, since I've taken everything from every supplement store back then, I'd say creatine was noticeably effective because I was training so hard back then that gave me a performance advantage. I could push harder. The rest of the stuff from the supplement store, I don't think it made that much of a difference, really. I noticed that, and I had a very fast metabolism, and so I would go catabolic. What I needed was something more anti-catabolic at that age, and just more food and more calories. My training was good. It was so hard to eat enough. So I would, I'd force feed myself protein, like lots of mass gainer shakes and protein shakes and all that. And of course that was all helpful, because of course it's better to eat real food, but you can't eat, like at that age, my metabolism being so fast, I had to use a lot of shakes to put on weight. So those, I'd say shakes and the creatine were the two noticeably effective, and all the other stuff that I spent my allowance on every month, which is a big allowance. I spent a lot of money on supplements. Didn't make that much of a difference.
All right.
Go ahead, Ben.
Let's dive into the really extreme stuff. I mean, there's this video out there. It's called The Most Extreme Cycle. How can you even come up with stuff like this? I mean, can you tell us about how you got that idea and what you actually did with this most extreme cycle?
Yeah, I'd say, so what I'm known for is the mass blasts, which is very short duration, high amount of bodybuilding chemistry, and your life revolves around training, eating, and taking as many injections as you can, basically, in a short period of time. And the idea is that if you take every muscle growth pathway and you remove every limiting factor, that there's not really that many bottlenecks to muscle growth. Like you can actually grow muscle very, very fast. So for example, most bodybuilders are doing like 8 to 16 week steroid cycles, and their emphasis is mostly on the steroids, which is the androgen pathway, but they don't spend a lot of time on the insulin pathway, growth hormone pathway, IGF pathway, inflammation, all these other muscle building pathways. And I knew that top level bodybuilders would use things like growth hormone and insulin. And I thought, well, what happens if you take someone who's not a top level bodybuilder and it's not blasting any one growth pathway? Like the dosage of steroids isn't really high, because if the dosage of steroids is really high, then growth hormone or insulin become a limiting factor. Like you can do a lower dose of steroids, adding growth hormone and insulin, and with the synergy, build more muscle. So this mass blast was an experiment, like how fast can we build muscle on both experienced bodybuilders and also people who are brand new and who've never done a steroid cycle before. So we did this experiment on people who'd never touched steroids before, and we blasted them with growth hormone, insulin, IGF, and something from every pathway, something to lower myostatin, like a SARM YK11. And then from the steroid side, maybe be like testosterone, which would also then convert to estrogen. So we'd have the estrogen pathway, the testosterone pathway, and then we'd add something like a trenbolone, which works through different pathways besides just the androgen receptor. And the results, because all of this was an experiment, but the results were pretty shocking. Like we put on huge amounts of muscle on people in very short periods of time. And then the question is, like, did they retain the muscle? So we kept checking back and see how much they retain and not. And shockingly, the same way that if someone did, 6 months of steroids, they kind of build a new foundation, right, and then they kind of can just maintain some level of that the rest of their life. The mass blasts, even despite being so short in duration, actually built that new foundation in just a shorter period of time.
So I come from a time where we started totally different. I remember with 17, I approached a Masters World Champion who owned the big gym in Bern, in our capital in Switzerland. And I asked about steroids. I worked out for 2 years and I was kicked out of the gym immediately. I was told, you have to kind of get much closer to your potential. You have to work out for many, many years. You have to kind of work out 4 or 5 years, and then you can start talking about it. I think it was very good advice. So you would totally disagree that you should wait as long as possible till you really have all the refined things like, you know, the training, the supplementation, and then start with a long dose, longer cycle. So you now say you would totally disagree on that.
Well, that old school approach to bodybuilding is a really beautiful thing. You know, it's this progression. Every part of the process, it's like a video game. You're learning something new. You're developing mind-muscle connection. You're building your form. You're learning how to train and eat before you add in the drugs. When you add in the drugs, you add in just one compound. You learn how your body responds to that. You add another compound, and you just keep growing, like physically and psychologically. I love that process. But the scientific experiment is, can it be done a different way? And of course, it's a safer way to do it very gradual, just like anything. To go to 0 to 100 has a lot of risks because, you know, you skip so many steps. But the truth is, with the chemistry, especially IGF is kind of the secret here. Like if you take high doses of IGF, your genetics don't matter so much anymore. You know, it's one of the only things that you can pretty much eat whatever you want. It turns into muscle. And if you don't eat, you just burn tons of fat. If you do eat, everything goes into the muscle. And then it's like a question of how much you can eat. But I mean, it's not healthy to be on it for a long period of time. So like part of the premise is, okay, if we're going to use IGF to build muscle and try and build more muscle hyperplasia, like permanent new muscle cells, we don't want to be doing it for a long period of time. So I was thinking my approach was going to be, I want to build like a lot of new permanent muscle cells, and I want to blast things like IGF and MGF, mechano-growth factor, but I don't want to be on a long period of time. I want to do it when I can do everything right, the diet and the training and the rest of the anabolics. And then I'll build that foundation, and then I'll just maintain that foundation afterwards. And the maintaining the foundation can be healthy. I don't have to take a lot of gear. I don't have to train extremely hard. So that was the premise. Now, this isn't the best way to get a professional bodybuilder physique. You know, that's not, if someone wants to be a professional bodybuilder, they don't need to be doing mass blasts. But if someone wanted to build as much muscle in a short period of time as possible and then just cruise the rest of their life, then it works for that. For example, you see when people do their first steroid cycle, they get the most amount of permanent gains from it. And it's almost like everybody should do a first steroid cycle, because you do that, it's like your body levels up. You go like you go through puberty, and then you do a steroid cycle, and it's like you go through another puberty, and the body just develops more. And so I think if I have a son, I don't have a son, I have daughters, but if I had a son, I would say, son, I think you should at least do one steroid cycle during your life, just to develop that extra layer of muscle and that extra mind muscle connection, know what it feels like.
And you actually don't need a lot, especially if you never took anything to make good gains. So, but as you said, it was an experiment. You didn't really know, will it work or not? Were you convinced it will work, or was it just a shot in the dark?
Well, I knew it would work to some extent, right? I mean, it's like you take a bunch of steroids and growth hormone and insulin. I mean, something's gonna happen. What I didn't know is, like, could we mitigate things like the water retention, the blood pressure, like all the side effects that come from this, or were the side effects going to outweigh the benefits of doing it this way? So some of the early mass blasts, we were trying to go for 30 days. And we found that you just can't do this protocol for 30 days. The body just shuts down. So then we started doing shorter mass blasts. The most recent mass blast that we actually covered by video and documented everything, that was 3 days of blasting, 1 day rest, 3 days of blasting, 2 days rest, and then 3 days of blasting. So it was a total of, I think, 12 days and total of 9 actual blasting days where we're doing injections for those 9 days. And that had the best benefit versus side effect ratio, is the most tolerable. And I mean, it's still at 24 hours a day, revolves around bodybuilding. If you're not working out, you're eating or you're sleeping. Like, it's a very dedicated 12 days, but it's still a short 12-day period. And that worked really well. Like, that was impressive.
All right.
So you said high doses are not necessary in this. Give us some examples. What are we talking about?
So, and I don't remember the protocols off the top of my head, but an example would be, let's say, 600 milligrams of testosterone. This would be like per week, but it's averaged and, it's a short duration. So it'd be like 600 milligrams of testosterone and 200 milligrams of tren and SARMs like LGD 4033 or AC 262 and a higher dosage of SARMs. Yeah. And then growth hormone and insulin are higher. Like growth hormone would be like as much as can be tolerated given the water retention. But most people, when they're not used to growth hormone, they can only tolerate about 10 units a day. And with the insulin, it'd be Lantus insulin. If they can, it depends on their tolerance, which we figure out in the first 3 days, but somewhere like 30 units of Lantus insulin, and then monitoring blood pressure and blood sugar all day, and then throwing in like a Novolin R or a Humalog as needed to keep the blood sugar down because we're eating so much. And then with IGF LR3, so the injections are once a day, and it would be like 100 micrograms and up from there, maybe up to 200 micrograms per day.
Wow. Is it not that GH works way better long term?
And usually an oral like a D-ball or Anadrol also. Growth hormone, yeah. So growth hormone, one of the benefits in this is it kind of blocks the fat gain. So it adds so much water in the muscle that the muscle cells, it's like almost like your muscle cells are exploding into more muscle cells. Growth hormone definitely is more of a long-term. I think it's better long-term, lower dosage, but a high dosage over a short period of time is pretty miraculous. Like how volumized the muscles get. And of course, a lot of that's water, but when you volumize the muscle and stretch everything out like that, and the muscle cells are just exploding, then some of that remains permanent afterwards and some goes away. But it's that volumization, like the muscles get so full, it feels like you're going to explode during this short period of time.
Where does SARMs fit in here? Because in tries I did with SARMs, it worked pretty good on me. I tried to have women after their cycles on SARMs, and I could hardly keep the gains from a mild steroid cycle with SARMs. Did I have bad quality? Did I take the wrong ones? But where does SARMs fit in there, which I feel like they were pretty weak?
You mean you took SARMs or the girls took SARMs, or which are both?
I tried SARMs. It worked pretty well on me. So I had a discussion with Dave once, with Palumbo once about it. And he's like, look, JP, they're useless. They work good on you because you're a genetical freak. So I tried it with women who came off very mild, like NPP, DECA, or cycles like that, to kind of keep their gains, and they could hardly hold on to it with SARMs. Now you make SARMs in a relatively extreme short cycle like that. Why? What's the benefit of it?
Yeah, so the goal is to saturate the androgen receptors with as few side effects as possible. So after we've got enough estrogen, and after we've got enough androgenic effects from the DHT conversion from testosterone, and let's say the trenbolone, because this is just an example cycle. After that, we just want to saturate the androgen receptors. So SARMs are the safer way to do it because they just have less side effects. So we can go higher in the dosage with less spillover into causing other side effects in the body. That's all.
Got it.
If I'm not mistaken, you had a chemist, right?
Coach Trevor, yeah.
And did he actually punch, or I don't know how to say it, make some of that stuff himself in a labor, or? Yeah.
He was constantly making stuff in the laboratory and inventing new stuff constantly, and making injectable SARMs and making things that are normally injectable, sublingual. Yeah, constantly doing crazy innovative bodybuilding chemistry. Yeah.
Yeah, because I never heard of injectable SARMs. That was completely new to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I told people yesterday that I'm interviewing you, so of course the traffic for episode 4, season 1 came up over and over again. So I would like to ask you about that. How real was that? or was it heavily edited in their favor? How do you feel about that later on when you watched it?
Well, it was very dangerous for me to do that, and a lot of people advised against it, and it did have some serious repercussions afterwards. And heck, anytime law enforcement takes a look at me or governments take a look at me again, they look at that, and that gives them all the cause they need to investigate me further, which has caused me a lot of headaches. You know, I was involved in this underground steroid world, but I'm a lawyer, so I was very careful in things that I did. I didn't sell steroids. I never carried large quantities of steroids on me. I got prescriptions for all of the things that I use. I would travel around the world. I would collect prescriptions in every country that covers everything that I carry. So I was doing things as legal as I possibly could. But the problem is, like, governments and law enforcement don't understand all this stuff. Like, if they want to make an example of me, there's a lot of material out that like this for them to do that. And it's very risky. And so, you know, they showed our underground laboratory. That was real. That was a real laboratory that we had, one of our underground laboratories. But it's not like these laboratories are made to manufacture products for resale. Our research laboratories were, because we're spending a lot of time in them, were as safe as possible. And then actual manufacturing stuff is like, I disconnect myself from that as much as possible, because that's the, you know, manufacturing and selling to consumers is the dangerous part. So I'd say the only thing that's inaccurate is it made it look more like I'm connected to manufacturing and selling, which I'm more on the research and development side, which for that I was as legal as possible. Yeah.
Tony,
go ahead, man.
Tony, as far as I understood, you got canceled, or I mean, many videos from you got canceled not because of what you said, because of you were too flashy, you were a show off, you showed too much of a high-end lifestyle and that kind of stuff. Is that true?
Yes. So you had these different organizations that got together to work on canceling me, and their reasoning was that because of my lifestyle, my influence, driving exotic cars and nice house and girls that I'm showing on camera, I was glamorizing performance enhancing drugs in a way that would make it more appealing for teenagers to use performance enhancing drugs. Now, all I was doing was telling the truth about things. Like, I was just talking about, like, here's what steroid cycles people actually do. Here's the experiment I'm doing. Like, I'm just teaching people the truth. And in the end, it's actually all harm mitigation, because I'm telling people both the good and the bad. It's not glamorized. Heck, if something bad happened, I got that, gave that just as much as attention as something good. But the truth is that steroids were a huge positive addition to my life, and I would not go back and not do steroids. I would go back and I would do steroids earlier if I could. And I think more people could benefit from taking more steroids than would benefit from not taking steroids. I think the misinformation is that steroids are bad and nobody should do steroids. And the truth is, a lot of people probably should do steroids because it would massively improve their quality of life. And testosterone replacement therapy, back when I started making videos, was taboo. And the media and everybody was against testosterone replacement therapy. And one of my missions was to just break the taboo against testosterone replacement therapy so that more men who had low testosterone levels could feel okay with getting help with low testosterone, and more doctors hopefully would start understanding that this is an epidemic, and it would make getting testosterone prescription easier for everybody because there's more knowledge, there's more education. I broke the taboo. So fast forward to now, and the taboo to some extent is breaking down. More people are getting testosterone. I think I made a huge impact in that. So I'm just giving you one example of, like, me challenging the system and me advocating for steroids in the end has a very net positive effect, which is people got more exposure to the truth about steroids, good and bad, And also it helped break the taboo and the emotional blocks that people had against it, and they could just look at the facts.
That part, I agree with you. You know, you showed some things which were real. Absolutely. I know what's going on. Where I started to scratch my head a little bit was the way this guy competed at the Amateur Olympia in Vegas. So from everything I know, and I know an exact protocol of the last 3 days of Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah.
You know, I know what I did. And what happened there? I mean, the day before, you injected all this stuff into this guy in the car. That could give kind of the view of that's how it's done competing, and it's not.
But the question is, why in the car?
Or you disagree with me? You really believe this is what's happening when top athletes compete?
I'm not sure that the audience get the idea that all bodybuilders would do this to compete in a bodybuilding competition, or if it's more that we're kind of on the scientific cutting edge doing experimental stuff. Because I think they framed it as more of it was like an experimental way to approach it. Now his situation, like he could have looked a lot better, but like his training and everything else, like it just wasn't. The whole thing wasn't optimal. The point of this is like he came into this competition not anywhere near where he should be to get on this stage, and it's like, okay, what tricks can we pull out of the sleeve to try to make a significant difference in his physique in a very, very short period of time? That was a very challenging case, but yeah, it is possible. It is possible to change the physique very, very quickly with chemistry. And if you're a professional bodybuilder, you're kind of redlining everything anyways. But if you're not, and let's say your muscles are glycogen depleted and you're flat and you didn't carb up properly, okay, well then we can add insulin to that, you know? So if you're not vascular, then we can add something to make the veins pop. You know, there's little things that we can do last second to make these changes to the body. So I think the point of that part is to show that there's all this chemistry out there that people don't realize that can be used to manipulate the human body.
Tony, I mean, obviously, if somebody's not in shape, there's nothing you can do. Yes, you can make them 5% better, but if somebody's not ready for stage, I mean, you can inject whatever you want, thousands of injections, and it's not gonna happen. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah, a few hours is there's not enough that can be done in a few hours for sure. If I had a week to mass blast him, there's kind of a lot I can do in a week. Yeah.
Sure, a week, sure.
Something else I want to get into it with you. I think you have some knowledge about it. It's still controversial up to today. I'm a big believer in it. Is peptides. So which one you believe are good? You think the quality we're getting online is good? What can you tell us about peptides? Which one do you like?
So peptides, I mean, we're just barely scratching the surface. I mean, there's thousands of peptides and scientists haven't even discovered them all yet. So this is a very exciting new field. They're like hormones, but smaller, and there's more of them in the body. And so if for pretty much anything in the body, like changing our skin color, okay, there's a peptide for that. Restoring eyesight, there's a peptide for that. Alzheimer's, there's a peptide for that.
Okay, hold on. There is a peptide for restoring eyesight? For real?
Yeah. Well, they're
how it's called?
Sabinatide ARA 290, I think.
Sabinatide, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and there's going to be there's peptides for everything, and they haven't even been discovered. But eventually, there's like any disease you have, okay, there's a peptide for that. So as it is right now, there's some peptides that have a lot of scientific data supporting them, like let's say TB 500, for example, for healing and recovery, BPC 157 for healing and recovery, and then some of the most well-known peptides, but people don't realize they're peptides, are like insulin, growth hormone, IGF, mechano-growth factor. So these are the muscle building ones. So like obviously peptides work because we couldn't live without insulin, and insulin's one of the most anabolic hormones. But then there's other peptides that are more controversial, like ones that lower myostatin, like Polystatin, and there's a whole bunch of different myostatin ones out there. So those are the more controversial ones. Those are the ones that people really debate whether they work or not. But if I had to pick like one that's the most powerful muscle building one to add in, like assuming your body already produces natural growth hormone and insulin, then it would be IGF.
So I'm on peptide program. I'm on a peptide program. Let me give you my peptide program, and you tell me if you would change that.
Okay.
So I usually run for about 5-6 weeks IGF LR3. I take about 50 microgram a day. When I'm done with that, I take for 3 weeks Kisspeptin 10 and then restart the IGF. On the inflammatory gut health side, I go from 3 weeks PPC 157 to 3 weeks TB 500 to 3 weeks KPB. And then I take a couple of weeks off and I start over again. Occasionally, I run for 4 weeks PEG-MGF. It's not really a plan on that. It's just run it for 4 weeks, take a couple of weeks off, and then run it at some point again. So what do you think about that program, and what would you change?
So, wow, this is a great peptide protocol. So 5 to 6 weeks on IGF LR3, you know, you're old, you're 55, right? I think you said. So as we get older, our IGF levels get lower, and restoring our IGF it's like testosterone replacement therapy, hormone replacement therapy. You're restoring your IGF levels to probably what they were when you're absolute prime. And so, yeah, no problem against that, so long as you don't have any side effects from it. You know, a lot of people say that the gut in bodybuilding is caused by IGF, but I don't believe that that's the primary. I think that eating too much food and too much insulin and inflammatory foods. So I don't see any problem with it. I think it's important to cycle off and get IGF levels low sometime for health and longevity, but that's exactly what you're doing. So that's great. And you do lose sensitivity to it the higher dosage you go, but everybody is different. So that's probably how long you could run it before there's some sensitivity loss too. So great. So 3 weeks Kisspeptin. I'm still not sure about Kisspeptin. The paperwork and literature on it is amazing. It sounds like an absolute miracle. I used it for some experiments and I didn't see any results from it, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't doing anything. I need to experiment with it more. And I'm not sure. There's so many different factors of why it couldn't have worked. Maybe I didn't get real stuff. Maybe, yeah, I mean, maybe dosage, maybe frequency of using it. Maybe it has to be used multiple times per day and so on. I don't know. The healing protocol. Why are you taking the healing protocol? Is it just general health and like?
I have some inflammation in my body. So I noticed when I'm on the program, when I get a massage underneath my knees, which I replaced one, the other one is pretty much bone on bone. I had always tough time when somebody went into my shins massaging. Although I do cryotherapy every day, if I'm on the PPC 157 TB 500, you can just massage deeply in it. I feel like my inflammation levels are way lower.
Yeah, good. It decreases inflammation and it increases like the amount of capillaries and veins to bring blood flow to everything in the body, which is, as we get older, is also really important. So I think that's great for health and longevity. BPC and TB 500, I use them. KPB I've heard of, but I haven't used it myself. So I'll look into it more afterwards. It's been, I think if that's the one I'm thinking of, it's been on my list to look into and I haven't.
So the one I'm always a little bit unsure with is the PEG-MGF. You know, I use it when I use it twice a week. On that day, when I inject the PEG-MGF, I don't take IGF LR3 because I heard they kind of could compete against each other for the same receptors. So you should just take that day off. What are the biggest benefits of PEG-MGF?
Supposedly building new muscle cells and upgrading, we'll say, like the DNA of the muscle cells. So another great thing for anti-aging of the muscle cell itself. We use it during the mass blast to try to induce more muscle hyperplasia. The point of the mass blast is like when we blow up the muscle, we're also trying to create new muscle cells. So we create that pressure, and then we use the IGF and the MGF to create new muscle cells. So, I mean, the scientific study shows that it works for muscle hyperplasia, and I use it. And the PEG is the once a day. It lasts all day, runs through the entire body. There's a short-acting one you can inject directly in the muscle, but I don't like that because you got to inject it in every muscle. So that's too many injections. So I also use the MGF PEG as well. Yeah.
Okay. I'm also a big fan and believer in peptides myself, and I take a bunch of myself. What you said regarding the Myostatin, Polystatin, my experience is you're only supposed to take it for 1 month, and then you have to take a month off, etc., etc. If you take it 1 month, you feel nothing, and then you take a month off, you still feel nothing. And in the 3rd month, then you finally see some results from 2 months before. That's really crazy how that works. Makes somehow not really sense, but that's how Myostatin, Polystatin works for me, for my clients.
Yeah, interesting. There's okay, so Polystatin, you do 1 month on and you see the results come later. That's okay.
Like
cool.
in the 3rd month, yeah.
I was using YK11 for a few experiments, which is an oral SARM that when they did the study, they said they tried to figure out it's definitely anabolic. It definitely builds muscle, but what's the pathway that it works through? It's not through the androgen receptor because there's 2 components to it, lowering myostatin and the androgen receptor. Right. And when they eliminated the lowering the myostatin element, it wasn't anabolic at all. So it's almost like a SERM that blocks the androgen receptor, which I theorize may resensitize the androgen receptor while growing muscle through the lowering myostatin pathway. So that's an interesting one. And nobody even knows what these things, like who's actually experimenting with these things for bodybuilding? Like nobody except for us anecdotally. So, but I did do an experiment where I took like 5 milligrams 6 times a day. And I noticed I gained a lot of muscle from that. And if it wasn't from the androgen receptor, then it must have been from the myostatin. So in that case, lowering the myostatin may have worked very quickly, but they say the side effect of lowering myostatin is weaker joints and tendons, and that's part of the risk. And I did get joint and tendon pain while I was on it, whether it's because of the lowering myostatin or whether because it's interacting with androgen or estrogen receptors or something. I'm not sure, but I do worry about that with myostatin lowering is the tendons.
I've seen one experiment which had to be discontinued a short time in with overweight women, myostatin. I think they injected into their calves and experienced very large growth there, and had to stop a few weeks in. It was a limited study. But I have a double question. How you feel about, the weak thing in all of this stuff, which is attributed to a lot of deaths in bodybuilding, is the heart. So are you regularly, obviously you did some of those blasting things yourself, and although you look very, very good right now, you're a bit of a smaller version. I like that. What do you do for your heart? How you get checked and how often?
I actually did have a bad heart incident a few years ago.
Right.
And yeah, so I just had let's see. No, I need to go get another echocardiogram, but the last test I had was an MRI, which is the best test that you could get to get an image of your heart, and the MRI came back perfect. Everything was fine. So I had a full recovery. I did use things like BPC 157 and TB 500 to recover my heart. But the problem I had was my mitral valve prolapsed. And so instead of closing all the way, it was bending and leaking. And then my blood was regurgitating back into my heart and I could feel it. And I would get dizzy easier because I'm just not getting proper blood flow. And this was really scary. Like I felt like, oh my God, I could just die at any moment because like my heart zone is not working well. And then if it works a little bit less, then I'm just dead and I can't do anything, can't get to it. By the time I get to the hospital, so yeah, the heart is very scary. I think though that most of my heart problem was caused by, number one, the flu, right? I got that really bad and I had horrible inflammation in my entire body and I'm lucky to be alive. And then lack of cardio and then stress and blood pressure. And also cardiovascular disease is a genetic thing I have to deal with as well. But I think I got the cholesterol under control and keep my inflammation down now and everything. But I worry a lot, like with a mass blast, for example, and when you're taking these compounds that put on so much water and increase blood pressure, that pressure goes on the heart, and the heart has to work so hard. And then when you're on all these anabolics, it's going to grow the heart. So it's just the perfect storm of causing long-term heart problems. So yeah, I'm really careful about these things. I'm very cognizant of, I'm thinking about in the back of my head, I'm thinking about my heart a lot of the time, actually. And I do lots of little things to try to take care of it. But the truth is, like, 80% of what I need to do for my heart is just do more cardio. And I just hate doing cardio, and I don't do it. And so that's just a really stupid thing on my move. But a lot of people do a lot of stupid things they should do in the health. And, you know, it's like stepping over pennies or stepping over dollars to grab pennies. Like, I'm doing all the little stuff for my heart health, but then I'm not doing the cardio, which is the most important thing.
You think there is a peptide which helps with your heart?
Oh yeah, I mean, the TB500 actually is really effective at helping with the heart. If you inject that into someone while they're having a heart attack, instead of their heart partially dying, it'll actually prevent cell death of heart tissue. So, and it'll help increase vascularity of the heart and blood flow and everything. And then I take telmisartan. You know, that's to lower blood pressure and make the arteries more flexible and all that. And rosuvastatin. On the peptide side, I'm trying to think whatever. I mean, TB500 is one of the, I think, best researched for it. I'm not sure what other peptide I can think of for the heart, maintaining vascularity for it as an anti. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's more.
Very, very interesting what you just said regarding the heart cells dying. I mean, I knew that TB500 is really good for heart inflammation, etc., but that I did not know. That's very interesting. And Jean-Pierre, just to let you know, so they injected into the cankles of these women? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and they had amazing results. So scary they had to discontinue in a short time, because if the calves grow like that, you can imagine other organs grow too.
Holy shit. Okay. Hey, so
go ahead, Ben.
How did you end up in Thailand? I think you went to a lot of places in this world, and you checked here and there in Europe as well and whatnot. But how did you end up in Thailand? Tell us.
Yeah, sex tour.
Oh, okay.
You know, I'm on the internet. I'm dealing with American women, and I found some great girlfriends in America, but I just felt like there's got to be something better than this culture. And look on the internet, and I see these videos of these Asian girls, you know, like treating white men much better than I'm used to women treating men in America. And I just went down that rabbit hole and researched a lot about, you know, tours, because I didn't want to just come to Asia myself. And so I got two of my friends and I said, hey guys, let's take a vacation to Asia and travel together.
Sex party.
We went, yeah. And we went through Thailand and Philippines and Vietnam and Hong Kong.
Okay.
And Thailand was my favorite. Philippines was a very close second, but Thailand had more like activities and infrastructure and more interesting things to explore. So it got my attention the most. And then when I got back to America, I'm like, oh my God, I can't live in America. Like, how could anybody go back to America after experiencing what I just experienced? I mean, I was having threesomes every night with like the most beautiful Asian girls who are worshiping me. That cost my threesomes with these girls worshiping me gave me more love than I got from my American girlfriends that I'd been with for years.
Wow.
And it cost me less than taking an American girlfriend to dinner. So I'm like, why would I ever go on a date in America again? What a waste of money and what a waste of emotional energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Those American women are very entitled to whatever, and I don't know why actually, but yeah, you're right. I understand.
So after I get back, I go on some Tinder dates and all that. I remember, I haven't thought of this until now. I remember sitting at Tinder dates just laughing to myself, like how ridiculous. This girl sitting across from me playing these emotional games. She's ugly. She's fat. She's giving me a hard time. She's got an ego. And I'm just laughing to myself, like, how ridiculous is that this girl even remotely thinks that this is like whatever that is attractive to me.
Tony, wait, Tony, time out. Why? So she sent you actually pictures where she was pretty, or what was the reason you would take out on an ugly fat girl? Come on, Tony.
Because your standards get lower and lower the hornier you get.
But you're a good-looking guy and you're a lawyer. Come on, man.
Yeah, but I've got a large appetite. So eventually you have to start scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Holy shit.
So what can we expect from you next?
With bodybuilding, I mean, with women or bodybuilding? Are
you going to stay over there? I mean, to live somewhere, you need to make money, at least I assume, or you're set with money, or what's coming next in the next 2 or 3 years from you?
Well, I keep innovating stuff on the supplement side and research and development, but I do some coaching stuff, but it's not bodybuilding, it's biohacking. So it's more like a CEO wants to improve their mental performance, physical performance, and optimize their supplement and exercise routine. So I do a lot of coaching like that, and a membership website for biohacking called Enhanced Matrix HQ. And I'm on my personal life, I'm always trying to build the perfect harem of women, of girlfriends that live together and get along together, but it always ends up in dramatic explosions. So like I have to keep learning and upgrading my skills about how to manage women, because I started out with no skills. So it's a long journey towards developing the skills to be able to manage that. And then on my physique, I'll go to Olympia coming up in a couple months, and walk around and meet everybody like I used to. And so I want to be a little bit bigger for that. So might do some MGF and IGF. Maybe I'll do a mass blast between now and then. I'll still stay living in Thailand and travel around, but Thailand is home base. I go between Bangkok and Pattaya, and Pattaya is my favorite city of the world. I think it's, as far as everywhere I've been in the world, I feel the most amount of freedom, like to do what I want without being criticized for it, socially or legally. Yeah.
So you're not hiding out, you're having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hiding out more now than I have for a long time, because my friend Leo died in my house, and that brought so much drama to me, and I realized how dangerous it is to have so many people close to me. So I've maintained more privacy more recently. Like now I see some value of privacy. So like I'm not publishing my girlfriends online as much anymore, which has helped bring the drama as far as them down a lot, because when I publish them, then all these white knights come in and try to rescue them, and which sounds bad because it sounds like I'm like holding them hostage, but no, it's not like that. But it gets in their head, when they get 100 messages a day saying, oh, Tony's got so many girlfriends, he can't give you attention, I'll take care of you. Like, oh my God. So less of that. And then also, like, what's dangerous in Thailand, it's like if you keep to yourself, you can do whatever you want. But as soon as it becomes a public spectacle, like, oh, you got the same thing as like in America, where you've got people that just hate you for being what you are, and they just want to like cause you problems. And so it's better to keep a lower profile. Like in Thailand, unfortunately, I already became famous, and now I'm trying to like keep my fame down in Thailand and then just be famous, in Western countries.
Yeah, the Sims are everywhere. I understand. But before we talk about your harem, every man's dream or probably nightmare, depends on how you look at, I want to scratch this surface of your friend died in your house. And I think it's a complete different situation than he would have died in the US, because I think it's pretty scary, because the investigations, the Thailand police, they're a little bit wired differently. So you had to be scared to get arrested, even though you might have nothing to do with it at all. How was the situation?
Yeah, I just was hoping that the investigation would be as thorough as possible, because I didn't do anything wrong. And the more thorough it is, the more proof that I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
So yeah, I was just like, yes, please take my DNA. Yes, please analyze my body for any wounds. Yes, please fingerprint the whole house and investigate everything. Yes, the more information, the better. And then, because what I'm worried about in Thailand, they don't have the same rules of evidence. Like,
right.
if they're like, oh, you're guilty, then, oh, you're pretty much guilty. Like, dude, you can't defend yourself like in America where you can, you know, where they have to like prove everything with evidence, you know? So it's dangerous also because in Thailand, it's more like witnesses carry a lot more weight. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of people are opportunistic about this. So like if someone wants to pay off a witness to say that I did something wrong, then that's,
wow,
you know, that's a higher risk. So
wow.
That's when I learned I just need to keep a little bit more of a private life and not cause drama and not make people jealous. Like, one of the worst things is that I sleep with all these girls and then their subsequent boyfriends are jealous. They think that their girl's going to come back to me. This was a huge problem. So you have all these guys out there who are like taking shots at me because I slept with not when they were with them, but I was like with the girl before. And guys don't realize these girls sleep with thousands of guys, right? You know, guys, European guys and American guys or whatever come here and they find this girl and they think that this is this, you know, pure little gem. No, she slept with 1,000 guys and me and every other guy are one of them. But because I'm famous, you know, that gets noticed and they know that. And then I get targeted for that. So, so much drama. So I'm just a lot more careful. Like, I don't sleep with a huge amount of girls anymore. I don't have a huge amount of girls come to my house anymore. I try not to do anything to make people jealous. And then I think I can, you know, keep my risk down here.
Yeah, because the girls are already in your house, as far as I understand, right?
Well, I always, I have girls here. I just try to, hopefully I can just keep the same ones and don't have to keep, you know, experimenting with other ones.
So was that always a dream of yours to have a harem, or how did you get there? I mean, as far as I understood, they live in your house and they also have kids, or how's the situation?
I have 2 baby mamas that each have a daughter and they live separately. And then I have my girlfriends that live with me. And then I just go visit the ones that don't live with me. And
so the girls with the kids don't live with you,
right?
So you can have your sex parties in your house and have fun,
right? But I actually want them all to live together as a family. Like, part of the reason for the harem is so that my children have more mommies. Right. That's Elon Muscular, by the way.
That's your bodyguard, huh? He looks like it. Yeah, right.
We're working before this and after this. We're working on the Enhanced Matrix HQ content. But the idea of the harem, there's a lot of benefits to it. But one of the main benefits is, like, when I have children, like, my children get a lot more family to take care of them and play with them. But the problem is, I didn't realize the jealousy, how extreme it could be with the baby mamas. Like, the baby mamas don't want my daughters to be around my other girlfriends. And I'm always trying to get them around. And when I do get them around, it's magical. It's amazing. And my daughters are so happy because they have 3 or 4 mommies at the same time giving them attention and playing with them. And my daughters love it. But then when my baby mama sees one of my girlfriends playing with my daughter and my daughter's having a better time with one of the girlfriends, then they get jealous. And that's the problem.
Right. So you have 2 women outside of your house with kids. And how many women are in your house living with you?
3 right now.
3. Oh, it's not that many. Okay.
Yeah, you're one interesting guy, and I don't know if my wife loves you so much, but I do. So congratulations to that.
She's not going to let you hang out with me.
So I've seen that footage in the documentary about you having a deposition. Are your legal problems a thing of the past in the United States?
Yeah, everything is finalized. Everything is done. Nothing bad happened. But, you know, the problem with these type of investigations is they destroy your entire life, whether you're guilty or not. You know, like, you know, you see this with celebrities, like they get investigated for something and then they lose their sponsors, and you know, temporarily, like, oh, the banks won't deal with you and nobody will deal with, like, you're blackballed as soon as you get these like charges or cases filed against you. So that's what happened to me. And on all of the platforms, like, you know, YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and even my Tinder account, everything deleted me off of every platform, deplatformed. And, you know, because there's something, it's not just one platform, it's some power behind the scenes can deplatform you from everything at the same time if they see you as like a political threat.
Sean Roden is a good example for that. What they did with him without any proof, you know,
oh yeah,
the allegations of rape.
Right.
He lost everything, every sponsor, every contract, everything, without even standing in front of a judge. He lost everything.
And I don't know the details of the case, but I know that Sean Roden is like one of the most gentle and nicest guys I've ever met.
Yes.
Like, I can't even remotely imagine him getting aggressive with someone. It's not even his person. It's possible, you know, behind the scenes, you don't know. But actually, with him, it strikes me as more like he's so nice, he's so vulnerable to a woman taking advantage of him. That
come on, Tony, you just won the Olympia. You can have 1,000 girls. If you want, you turn around and like, who wants to have sex with me? Come on. And then you take a girl who you're supposed to check out in your hotel room and you want to rape her when you have 1,000 other possibilities.
It's not even the point. What about innocent and proven guilty? You know, I mean, they pretty much took his life likelihood away immediately, you know, just because of an accusation.
So as a lawyer, I had a lot of my clients whose lives were destroyed by false allegations. And I was mainly a financial lawyer, a business and bankruptcy lawyer. But what happens is when someone has a legal problem like this, they sometimes have other ones, like they're dealing with divorce or criminal cases or whatever. So I get involved with all of their cases in some way or another, and I get to see what's happening with them. And I saw so many guys' lives ruined by false allegations by women. And then I thought, man, I'm dating all these women and these women get so jealous and crazy and they make threats to me. I'm like, even though I've never done anything wrong against a woman, like, you know, no crimes against women. I'm like, I'm going to get framed someday. It's only a matter of time. It could be 1 year, it could be 10 years, but I am the perfect target for this type of woman. And so that's another reason why I wanted to get out of America. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're like Andrew Tate. Yeah. Same.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities. Yeah.
Lots of similarities. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was so nice to meet you. I got to tell you. So it was refreshing. It's very different from what we do right now or usually do here.
Here, I'm gonna take a picture because again, like, this is so crazy that I was looking at you in the magazines when I was a kid, and what happened? Oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm using the cell phone internet from my phone, so when I took a picture, it disconnected. Okay, good. I got a picture.
Right. But we're not done yet, Tony. We're not done yet.
Okay.
I'm ready. Talk about round something you're very open about, and I actually think it's cool. So the Ladyboys, come on. So
there we go. I was waiting for it.
Let's. Okay, what do you think? Who's actually more pretty, a pretty woman or a pretty ladyboy?
You know, I should show you a picture and have you decide. This is a ladyboy that Connor was dating, but I hung out with him a few times. And it'll just take a second and I'll find the picture here. It's just buried a little bit because one of my girlfriends like really doesn't want me hanging out with ladyboys. Okay. So you tell me what you think about that. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a lady boy. Smoking hot.
Yeah, I know some myself, and they're really like so freaking beautiful. And you could never tell, not on the voice, not on the behavior. they're like so feminine, feminine. It's ridiculous. They
Well,
can trick you easy.
Yeah, what happened the first time is I was in a bar in Bangkok during one of my, not my first trip, but no, actually it might have been, no, it was my first trip. It was my first trip to Thailand because I got tricked. And then after that, I knew how not to get tricked. But my friend and I were in this go-go bar, and I picked this girl that was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen. And she sat next to me, and she's seducing me and doing everything. Like, I've never had a girl do everything that I could ever want her to do to make me attracted to her. I was 10 out of 10 attracted to her. And after 15 minutes of her seducing me and me just being so excited, my friend leans over to me and says, my girl's a ladyboy, and I think yours is too. Ask her if she's a ladyboy. And I was like, no way, not possible. I've heard of this, but this couldn't possibly be. Asked her if she's a ladyboy. She says, yes, but I have a pussy. And she showed me her pussy, and it was a perfect pussy.
What, right there in the bar?
Yeah. And I was like, I don't understand. My brain is so confused. I couldn't process it. But I was also so fascinated. It was like I opened the door to another dimension besides like reality on Earth. Like I'm seeing aliens or something, and your brain just can't even process it.
An alien pussy.
Yeah. And my friend is like, we gotta go. And I'm like, what do you mean we gotta go? I just met my dream girl. She's like, yeah, but she's a ladyboy. I'm like, I know, but it's my dream girl. And then I'm like, so are all of them ladyboys? And then she's like, yeah, they're all ladyboys. The girl told me, or the ladyboy told me. And I looked around, and I'm trying to figure out signs. Like I'm looking at their feet. Okay, their feet are a little bit bigger. I see it. Okay, look at their neck. Okay, a little bit more. I start noticing these little things, and mind blown. And then we eventually do leave the bar, and I turn around and look, and the bar says Ladyboy Bar above it. Like we totally missed that. We walked in and totally missed the sign that it says Ladyboy Bar. That's how naive we were.
Yeah, but let's be honest. I mean, once they do the surgery, they're really full girls. So what about if they didn't have the surgery done? How you feel about that? You're still very much into it?
I mean, they usually have very small penises that are kind of like the size of a clit of a bodybuilder girl. You know, bodybuilder girls have large clits, so they have small penis, large clit. It's actually looks very similar. The two look very, very similar. You can see how the anatomy just changes with the exposure to certain hormones through puberty. The clit becomes a penis, and the labia become balls. Like in a bodybuilding woman, you can see this forming like into a penis and balls. And with the ladyboy, you know, when they are smaller like that, their balls are small and their penis is small. It looks like a clit with labia almost, you know. I mean, like you can trick yourself into believing that, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's one simple trick how you can tell. They cannot bend their arms. We as men, we cannot bend their arms, but the women can overbend their arms. They'll say, okay, do this. And then you know right away.
Yes, that is a test. That's true. That works.
A friend of mine told me that Sebastian, you know him too, the Basti.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because he lives there where you live.
Wow, yeah. I love Sebastian. I need to hang out with him more too.
Yeah, great guy.
But one of my girlfriends, she really like doesn't want me to be with the ladyboy. So it's been so long since I've done anything with the ladyboy. And yeah, I miss it because I don't actually like the anal sex. I don't like anal sex at all, really, with a girl either. It's just too like just tight and everything. But I like the way the late. Oh my God! See, this is the one. She's gonna be mad at me if we're talking about it. Go.
It's okay.
So with the ladyboys, I like how they know exactly what a man wants. And men, like we have all these books that we read, you know, when you're a young man, at least these newer generations, they're reading books on like how to pick up women and how to seduce women. And I think this is a good thing because I think the women appreciate a man with some experience to know what they want. And I want women to be more experienced also. I want women to know what men want. I want a woman to turn
open.
Okay, sorry about the internet is actually very stable in Thailand. This is like the one time the internet's been cutting out.
No, I guess your girlfriend plucked it out because you were talking about ladyboys.
Yeah, maybe.
So,
Maybe. Well, the point is that I appreciate ladyboys for putting in the effort. They have to try harder than a woman does, and they develop their skills of seduction. And I wish that women were as seductive as ladyboys, because it's not about, it's like, I don't care whether they're born a man or a woman. I care about how the person treats me and like how excited I get. And ladyboys just, they work harder at it. I guess it's the kind of thing like when men put their minds at it, you know, men are really good at things like even being a lady, you know?
Right. Okay.
all right. So Tony, I'm going through all my notes here, and I mean, I don't want to be boring and get back to some stuff we missed, you know, since
Sure.
I love to listen to your girl stories. I mean, it's fascinating. But there's a few things I missed, and I want to just kind of at the very end get back to it. I went once to a bodybuilder's house who called me over. The guy was sitting in front of 3 fans, you know, getting air, dying. And he told me he took a drug called DNP. So when I Googled you, that came up repeatedly. What was the case with that, and how you feel about that drug?
Sure, it's very deadly. So are a lot of things if you take too much of it. What I was trying to do is educate people on how to use it safely, because I think if used safely, it's actually a very healthy longevity drug that can cure a lot of diseases as well. In fact, one of the reasons I got censored, I've been censored and deplatformed so many times, but one of the reasons is by talking about DNP. And the truth is, if you look at the amount of DNP usage after I started teaching about it, it increased by 10-fold. But did the deaths increase? No, the deaths went down after I started talking about it, despite a 10-fold increase in DNP usage. So the problem with DNP is that people weren't talking about the fact that, for example, it had a long half-life. So it's rare that someone takes too much on day one. They take this, because this happened to my girlfriend. My girlfriend, long before I started becoming a bodybuilding chemist influencer type character, at a very young age, at age 20, 21, my girlfriend took DNP and she almost died. And that was like, wow, that's because she didn't educate herself on it, because there wasn't very good education on it. And thank goodness she didn't die. And I wasn't the one who was even telling her how to take it or what to take. It was a friend that was. And then I was like, okay, I need to really learn this stuff, because this stuff is really powerful and really dangerous. So I started actually learning about DNP when I was 21 years old, which is, you know, I'm 41, so 20 years ago. But I never actually taught anybody else about it until I started the YouTube channel, you know, like 9 years ago. And I supervised, you know, hundreds of people using it very safely without side effects. And I probably became like the most experienced person in the world as far as supervising the most amount of people who have ever used DNP before. And I learned how to use it really safely, and I learned it could be used really safely. And so, yeah, there's definitely side effects. And the main problem is usually because it has a long half-life. Like what happened to my girlfriend, she took it on day 1. She didn't feel it. She took more on day 2. She felt it a little bit. Day 3, she took more. And because it had a long half-life, day 1 and 2 dosage was still in her system. She took the day 3 and she overdosed, and she had to spend the entire day in the shower with the coldest water, which is pretty cold, on her, so she didn't overheat. Yeah.
During your experiments, did you ever experiment or know about spot injections like IGF, DES? And if so, do you think they work?
Yeah, IGF, DES definitely worked on me when I started experimenting with it. It was actually one of the first things I was experimenting with, because I was afraid of things like my heart and my organs. So I was more willing to experiment with spot injection than I was with things that would go systemic. So yeah, I started experimenting with IGF, DES a long, long time ago.
the danger with DNP is actually that whatever you take today, you feel it like 2-3 days later, you know. So you don't know when you overdose because it comes later. So now all of a sudden you burn from the inside, and there's nothing they can do. You know, if you get too hot, you can go to the hospital, whatever. You're gonna die no matter what.
Yeah,
that's the danger of it. And how do you figure out what is the right amount for you? You know, how? You figure that out. You
gotta take like a really very low dosage, and you don't increase the dosage until you've been on that dosage for 3 days, so you know what that dosage feels like once it's accumulated. And then you do multiple cycles. The first cycle, you just stick with a low dosage, and then you stop, let it get out of your system, and just assess how you felt. And the next cycle, a little bit higher, and then stop and see how you felt, and just do it in chunks like that. Eventually you learn how your body reacts to it and what dosage you can take. And then you can jump into higher dosages right off the bat because you know exactly how your body's going to react.
You have a lot of traffic in your house. I'm going to tell you that much.
Yeah. That's Colton, the video editor, and Connor Murphy right before that. Yeah.
Right. I guess it's a group sex session soon to be happen over there. No, but you get very lethargic from DNP. That's what I heard from somebody who took it. I never took it, so I don't have the experience. He said after 7 days, he didn't want to do anything, just sitting. He couldn't do nothing. He could not train. Everything was miserable.
Yeah, it gets rid of all your ATP. Like, it's the opposite of creatine. And creatine gives you more ATP, more fuel to work out, and DNP burns off all your glycogen in your muscles. So then you're carb depleted, burns off all the ATP. So you've got no fuel. So like any body movement that involves your muscles just feels exhausting. But it's dosage dependent a little bit, and you don't even feel it, right? You can take a little bit of DNP and you don't even know you're on it, and it's burning fat in the background, but that's not too exciting, right? So, you know, people like us, we push the limit and we see how high we can take it.
Yeah,
well, it depends. When you get older, you get wiser. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I heard DNP goes a long way back, like 20s, 30s, Hollywood. People used it. So it's nothing new. Hey, you worked with a lot of women. Is that correct? You helped a lot of women. You advised a lot of women.
Yeah, well, I usually like the chubbier girls have better personalities. So I figure if I get like a chubby girlfriend, and then I can do a transformation on her.
I talk about, yes, correct. So one of the problem women have, you know, you want to keep them feminine. I noticed the documentary was not quite the case everywhere. So what happened? Well, how do you advise women to stay feminine? Short blast, this is the same principle? No,
just SARMs. And the SARMs do work, and it's a matter of finding the right dosage and the right SARM for the girl. But yeah, my girlfriends, well, I don't give them SARMs unless they work out, and some of them just, it's hard to get them to work out. But like if they work out and I know they're consistent enough to where I can add this in and it'll make a huge difference, then yeah, I'll let them take SARMs.
Yeah, but if you have a national competitor who has a chance to compete at the Olympian physique, the SARMs is not going to cut it.
Yeah, well, in physique, maybe. Sorry, bikini, yes. In physique, no. I think they're usually going to need something a little stronger. But SARMs can get them a lot of way there, you know, like off season, they can use SARMs to gain the size, and women can also use growth hormone and insulin, and they don't usually use it, but it's actually effective on them, and it's non-androgenic. So there are other pathways that women can grow muscle that are not related to the androgen receptor and androgenic side effects.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely love insulin. It's how I built. I think it's how I built a different physique than most back in the days. It was definitely insulin, and my stomach issues came, like you mentioned before, from bad food, too much food, pushing food for too long. It nothing to do with insulin itself. So insulin is a great potent kind of hormone. Yeah, very interesting.
Wait, can you tell me a little bit? Just quickly, a couple things about your protocol back then. That would be amazing if you're able to.
I can
okay. Yeah, let's just take insulin, for example. That's a fascinating one for me.
So I checked my early morning blood sugar every week. When I was over 90, I started to use Lantus before bedtime. So usually when I used 10, 20, the maximum 30 Lantus, my blood sugar was perfect in the morning. During periods when my blood sugar was fine, I reduced Lantus, and there were times where I didn't need it. Sometimes I did high saturation days on days off where I ate a lot of carbs. Then I took a lot more Lantus, even twice a day, 50, 60 units twice a day. Then I used very short-acting insulins. So I used two kind of insulins. We didn't have Piasp back then. Piasp, I think it's very, very great. It works only for an hour or two. You can cover a meal. So I used a 5-6 hour insulin in the morning. And then the shortest we had after the workout to cover 2 meals. So I checked 2 hours after meals. I checked my blood sugar to see if the dose I took is in accordance with the carbs I took. So I kind of was making sure I work like a machine. Everything is absorbed. Everything works great. So that's how I worked with insulin. The way I found out about it, nobody knew about insulin. So we felt, okay, we have to travel to California to find out about insulin. We walked into Gold's gym, my friend who translated for me, and the biggest guy was Mike Christian. So we went up to Mike Christian and say, hey, we are here to learn about insulin. And he laughed loud out. So he's like, well, I'm going to tell you, buddy, nobody knows shit here. So I talked to the poor guy. He doesn't want to talk. We poor idiots. We're coming here thinking people will help us. They don't want to tell us. So Mike and I became friends many years later, and I found out he was right. Nobody knew shit about insulin in California in the early 90s. So I went back and I talked to a doctor who deals with diabetics. So I approached him in the gym. I said, this is the plan, insulin to build muscle, to absorb more food. And he looked at me and he says, wow, really? People do that? I said, yeah. Do you have any idea? He says, let me think about it. I never really talked about it in that kind of connection. So he came kind of up with this protocol, how you constantly check blood sugar. You use a long-term insulin, 24-hour insulin as you need it. And the other one just to absorb more food, but just as much as is needed, What I then made, the mistake I made, it worked so great. Then I thought, okay, if I use more, I can eat more and I can get even bigger. Yes, it was the case, but it was not, evenly, nicely distributed. And my midsection started to get out of control. So that was the mistake. I should have stayed with the small doses early morning to cover 3 or 4 meals, and then with the small dose post-workout. I never did during workout kind of, like the Milos protocol where you do pre, during, and after workout. It's probably also because we didn't have 1 or 2 hour insulin back then. Even the shortest insulin was 5-6 hours. So I'm definitely experimenting with some athletes with that today, and it works absolutely great where you just blast during every meal, a short-acting insulin. But that's kind of how I used insulin. When I was off steroids, I didn't use insulin except if I needed Lantus. So I still kept checking my early morning blood sugar. And if needed, I used Lantus, but I didn't use any short-acting insulin. I also didn't train hard during the time periods off. I trained I just did pump workouts 3 times a week, didn't use insulin. That's my protocol. When it comes to steroids,
was growth hormone taken with the insulin like during those days? Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. So early in, I had this attitude that I should become a pro without growth hormones. Not that I agree on that today. And the other thing was growth hormones was extremely expensive back then. 4 units in Switzerland was $250, $300. And the other option was to buy not synthetic growth hormones from Russia through the Russian mob, which I have a very funny story about that. That was the first growth hormone I bought from the Russian mob. So I didn't use growth hormone as an amateur. I became Mr. Universe without growth hormone. And then other thing, I was told, don't use more than 500 milligrams of testosterone as an amateur. Because otherwise, as you've seen so often, you become pro and then there's nothing left. You're already maxed out. You've seen that very often. So my normal amateur cycles were 500. I did 12-week cycles, 500 milligram of testosterone. I kind of switched different compounds every 5, 6, 7 weeks, but never really felt the difference. Then I did the first 4 weeks. I did Masteron, 300 or 400 milligram with 25 milligram of T-ball a day. Then I switched for 4 weeks to Tren. Then I went back to 4 weeks Masteron and T-ball. So Masteron and T-ball, that mix gave me the same feel as I had with Tren, but I didn't want to take Tren all the time. So I kind of tried to simulate the Tren for 12 weeks without taking it for 12 weeks. So I went between Masteron, D-ball, Tren, Masteron, D-ball. Sometimes when I was so big and slightly on the chubby side after eight weeks into the cycle, instead of going back to Masteron, D-ball, I continued with Winstrol, although I was not a big fan of it and just kind of kept the weight. So the only difference in a contest cycle was, actually, as a base, I use Primo most of the time, testosterone and Primo. Primo was my favorite base, so I kind of tried Deca, or didn't work so great for me, or Primo or EQ, although with EQ, I didn't really have the knowledge back then how to use it the right way. EQ, I think what I see now works better long term. It takes quite a few weeks to really kick in. So I used EQ sometimes instead of Masteron for 4 weeks and never really got the benefit of it. Now I know why. But I usually used Primo as a base. I loved Primo as a base, although it was a little difficult. We only had 50 milligram vials from sharing back then. So we could take about 8 a week or so, to get to the 400 milligram necessary. The only thing I did then different as a pro, I doubled the testosterone. Everything else I kept the same. Testosterone, 1,000 milligram a week. And Primo I stayed with 4, sometimes went 500 for 12 weeks. And then same, went between Masteron, D-ball, and Tren, back and forth. The only difference in a competition cycle, it was 4 weeks longer. Instead of 12 weeks, I went for 16 weeks, where the last 4 weeks I took the Primo out and then just kind of went back to Masteron without the D-ball and added Inawar instead. The last 2 weeks, halotestin. That was kind of my competition cycle. So that's pretty much exactly what I did. And, I was very, very scared of high doses. And not that I was morally superior in any way or so. I heard what other people take, but I had a mentor, Harry Derglin was his name. I was one of the first master over 40 world champions. And he said to me, look, if you take more, you take 3-4 grams a week, it will absolutely work better. He said to me, I'm going to tell you that. But your body will get used to that dose. And then where do you go from there in a year? It says to build a Mr. Olympia physique, it's a 10-year project. So you have to find a way to do this for 10 years and consistently improve. So if you take more, you're going to get into a devil's circle and you're going to have to need more and more and more. And at some point, you're going to have more and more side effects also. So I was very, very scared. And whenever I heard that, well, this guy takes this much and this guy takes that much, we used to travel to their guest postings. I heard Barry DeMay, he was one of the legendary bodybuilders when I grew up, said he takes 6-7 grams a week and you need to do that. So I went to one of his guest postings and I was a junior bodybuilder already bigger than him. So I figured, well, I don't think this is really necessary, not even knowing if it's true or not. But that's exactly what I did. And whenever I got away from those cycles, when somebody came up with something crazy, it's like, hey, you have to try this, you have to try that, I was always disappointed and went back to my original testosterone, Primo, and then going back and forth between Masteron, D-ball, and Tren. And the Tren back then, there was only one company produced it. It was called Parabolan, 78.5 milligram. If you took 3 a week, that was just like fire. That stuff was absolutely great. It was never more necessary. Yeah. So that's what I did. GH,
wow, amazing.
GH, I took not more than 4 units a day as a pro. So I took 5 days a week, 2 days off. So I honestly don't know if it did much. I mean, I can, it's not something you really feel like a steroid. You take a steroid and oh my God, this is feeling great. Yeah, I can't really can't really say, but obviously did something the way I looked. So yeah, that's in detail what I did. I did a little bit of Hormone during those cycles, 0.5 milligram every 48 to 72 hours. I tried to stick to the minimum. One drug I used, pretty much useless by itself, but great in combination. I was a big fan of Proviron. I took Proviron during all of my cycles, 50 milligram a day, and doubled that to 100 the last 2 weeks before the show.
And you kept your hair pretty good, huh? I mean, whether you had a transplant or not, I mean,
it's a funny story about that. I was very disappointed about that back in the days. I remember the press conference of the 96 Olympia. So the camera went through from the left to the right, and then nobody has hair. And then me with a full set of hair. So I told my body, it says, you think our shit is not working in Switzerland? Why the hell do I have all this hair, guy? But it's purely genetics. That's pretty much it.
Come on, Jean-Pierre Savic. Be honest with us. Come on.
That came later.
Hey, one follow-up question. Sorry, one follow-up question. When you have very low blood sugar, makes insulin even sense?
No, it's dangerous.
Right.
You have to eat accordingly to make sure.
No. I mean, you in the morning you have like 50. Your blood sugar is 50 in the morning on an empty stomach.
No, with under 70, you start to feed. Your body starts to feed on your muscle tissue.
Right.
So no, it wouldn't make sense. I mean, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong here, but no.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's dangerous and it's just counterproductive. Like what the insulin is supposed to be pushing carbs and protein in the muscle, but if there's nothing to push in the muscle, it's kind of like, what's the point? And maybe a little bit of anti-catabolic benefit, but that means using a really low dosage. And so no, it's mainly eating lower food.
Okay.
But all this insulin just was creating my body pretty much. It did great till I started to push it. I thought, okay, let me go from this dosage to that and eat double. That's when it started to get out of hand. So it's just I became bigger and bigger, but it started to look like more like a butcher at the end than a bodybuilder. So, but as long as I just kept the calories reasonable, insulin was great. There was absolutely no side effects on the stomach.
Right.
Wow.
All right. Epic. Perfect.
There we go.
Awesome. So, Tony, was a pleasure, man. It was really, really good. I love you having been on our show. Like, absolutely awesome. We got a lot of information out of you. And I really enjoyed it, for sure.
So, Tony, you said you're coming to the Olympia over here, or you talk about an Olympia over there?
Orlando,
yeah, we'll see you there.
Okay, cool. That'll be fun. All right, let's make sure to connect with each other so we meet up there.
Absolutely.
Shake hands. Yeah. Cool.
All right. I will forward the WhatsApp for sure. No problem.
All right. Thank you.
That's
it was an honor. I appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Thank you so much, Tony. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.